Pastor, author, and speaker Jentezen Franklin is praised all over the world for his moving sermons and dedication to spreading the Christian faith. Behind the strong presence he has now, though, is a story of a simple but very important youth. His early years shaped not only his personality but also his lifelong commitment to service and his desire to reach people through the gospel. Jentezen Franklin was born on July 21, 1962 in Wilson, North Carolina. He grew up in a close-knit family that put a lot of value on faith and society. Billy and Katie Franklin had 5 children. He was one of them. Billy and Katie were spiritual leaders in family rock. Growing up, Franklin's parents were strong Christians. As a preacher, Franklin's dad taught his kids to love the church and give their lives meaning through faith. Young Jentezen was deeply affected by this environment, which taught him values that would lead him throughout his life. Jentezen's childhood was based around the church because he grew up in a pastor's home. Life was full of normal things like Bible studies, prayer groups, and Sunday services. From a very young age, he saw how hard and rewarding service could be by watching his father do it. Jentezen learned how important it is to serve others and stay true to one's calling, even when things get hard, by watching his father lead with humility and dedication. His family's dedication to ministry was more than just a job. It was a way of life that stuck with him. Even though Jentezen had a spiritually rich education, he had some hard times as a child. The Franklin family did not have a lot of money and often relied on their faith to get by. Even though these money problems were hard, they taught Jentezen how important it is to keep going and be thankful. He learned to believe that God would take care of him and to be happy in small things. These lessons about being strong and having faith became a big part of his personality and would later come through strongly in his lectures. Jentezen also fell in love with music when he was young. He was naturally good at playing the saxophone, and he became really interested in music, often playing in school bands and neighborhood shows. He used music as a way to express himself and let out his ideas. But it also set the stage for his future mission, in which music would be an important part of worship and spiritual connection with people. As a teen, Jentezen had to deal with the problems that come with growing up in a world full of pressures and things that can take your attention away. He was taught about trust all the time, but like many young people, he had times when he wasn't sure what would happen in his life. During these formative years, he thought a lot about himself and grew as he tried to figure out who he was and what his calling was. His upbringing, on the other hand, gave him a strong sense of right and wrong, and he often found himself going back to the lessons and ideals his parents taught him. One of the most important events in Jentezen's life happened when he was young and went to a revival service. During this event, he had a deep and personal experience with God, which strengthened his faith and made him want to spend his life serving others. When he had this spiritual awakening, things changed for him. He realized that his goal wasn't just to follow in his father's footsteps, but also to make his own way by spreading the message of hope and forgiveness. Jentezen's childhood was a mix of faith, family, and important events that made him into the man he would become. His childhood showed how powerful it can be to grow up in a loving, caring home where faith was the most important thing in everyday life. His parents taught him skills, he faced problems, and he found his passions. All of these things helped him build his ministry. Right now, Jentezen Franklin is the senior pastor of Free Chapel, a church with multiple campuses. He still uses the lessons he learned as a child. His talks often show how his parents taught him to be humble, strong, and have faith that doesn't waver. Jentezen shares the timeless story of God's love and the power of faith to change lives, whether he's preaching to thousands of people or writing books that inspire millions. From being a little boy in North Carolina to becoming a spiritual leader around the world, his life shows how important it is to have a strong base built on faith and family. Pastor, author, and spiritual leader Jentezen Franklin has been an influence and source of strength for many people around the world for a long time. Franklin has helped many people get through the hardest times in their lives through his powerful lectures and unwavering faith. However, even someone as strong as Franklin can face problems in life. The news that he was going to be hospitalized because of thyroid cancer was a very sad and difficult time in his life. It showed how weak he was and how powerful faith, community, and hope can be. Franklin was diagnosed with thyroid cancer in a quiet way with mild signs that were easy to ignore because he was so busy. Franklin was used to a busy life as the senior pastor of Free Chapel, a church with multiple campuses and a well-known person in the Christian community around the world. He spent his days teaching, writing, traveling, and helping other people. But an odd, long-lasting hoarseness in his voice and some mild pain in his neck made him decide to see a doctor. At first, it seemed like a small problem, but soon it turned out to be thyroid cancer, which would change her whole life. Franklin and his family were shocked and devastated by the news. He had spent his whole life giving comfort and support to others, so having his own health problem was a shock and a lesson in humility. Franklin had to face his own death in a deep way when he learned he had cancer, a word that makes people afraid and unsure. In that moment, his faith and the values he had preached for decades were put to the test. After being given the diagnosis, Franklin was taken to the hospital to be checked out and treated further. What it was like to be a patient instead of a spiritual guide was very humbling. Because hospitals are clean and have medical equipment running all the time, they can be both healthy and dangerous places. Franklin found that his faith was not only a source of power for other people in the hospital, but also a way to stay alive himself. The people in Franklin's family and church group were always there for him during this time. Charisse, his wife, became his rock. She was there for him, comforting and encouraging him while dealing with her own worries and fears. Their children, who were strongly rooted in the faith their parents taught them, showed their dad lots of love and prayers. Christians from all over the world, including the Free Chapel congregation, sent words of hope and held prayer vigils to show their support. While Franklin was in the hospital, he took time to pray and think deeply. In the quiet of his hospital room, he found comfort in the Bible and God's presence. In Isaiah 41:10, it says, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be shaken, for I am your God." He thought about the words, "I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand," in a new way as he thought about surgery and treatment. The medical team suggested that Franklin have surgery to get rid of the abnormal growth in his thyroid gland. Even though the process was normal, the risks were very important to him, especially because his voice was so important to his ministry. Franklin told his family and church members about his fears and asked them to pray for him not only to get better, but also for strength and peace. The surgery went well, and Franklin started his recovery with guarded hope. There were, however, some hard things along the way to healing. As I healed physically from surgery, I also had to deal with mental and spiritual problems. Franklin had to slow down and think about some parts of his life and work again after the event. He relied on his faith and the support of his loved ones to get through this new stage. It was a time of both vulnerability and change. Franklin's fight with thyroid cancer became a powerful example of how faith can help you stay strong. His followers were deeply moved by how open he was about his fears and struggles. Many of them had been through or were going through similar challenges. Franklin talked about what he learned during this time in his talks and on social media, stressing how important it is to trust God even when things look bad. Today, Jentezen Franklin is still getting better and telling his story to inspire others. His battle with thyroid cancer is not only a story of his own struggles, but also of faith's power, the value of community, and the hope that shines even when things don't look good. Franklin's journey shows us that God and the help of those who love us can make us strong even when we feel weak. It's a story about kindness, strength, and how faith can last forever. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for your help. Don't forget to like and comment on this video if you liked it. Please let me know what you think. We'll see you next time.